This is Storyboards.
Welcome back to Storyboards, my friends.
Mein Franz.
Mein Frankensaurs. Frankensteins?
My Frankfurters. I'm Zach.
I'm Jameson.
And we're happy to be here.
Yes, we are.
It hasn't been a little bit because we've had the decapods.
Yes, the decapods.
So you guys have heard us and heard our stories and things, but we
haven't spoken to you.
Or to each other.
I missed you, Zach.
Yeah, I missed you too. Well, we spoke to each other.
Yes.
It's just not like sat down and
in
spoke
an
to each other.
official capacity? In a recorded conversation.
Yes, in a recorded conversation. Thank goodness.
Yeah. Well, it's been a good few weeks.
Yeah, it has been. It has been. I get to move on Friday.
Woohoo!
So that'll be fun.
Gets to move into a house.
Yeah, I'm excited.
4 bedrooms.
Yeah. 2 bathrooms.
What are you gonna do with all that space?
Put stuff in it.
Oh, there
Live
you
in
go.
it.
I guess that's what you have to do.
Yeah, that's the purpose of a house.
I got to go live on radio.
Yeah, you did. You had an hour-long
Yeah,
interview.
it wasn't an hour.
About an hour.
A few commercial breaks.
Commercial breaks are an important part of the hour.
Yes, they are. It was a quite a fun interview. We got to talk about the podcast and broadcast it out there that this podcast exists.
We exist.
And it's a cool thing.
We speak, therefore we are. Because, I mean, who's to know if we actually think? To you, we're just voices in your ear.
Oh, man. I don't want to be a voice in your ear. I just want to be... Well, I do want to be a voice in your ear, but I want to be a person. I want to be a real boy.
You don't want to be a Schrodinger's cat?
I don't want to be a Schrodinger's cat.
Are we alive? Are we dead? You guys technically aren't observing us, so we don't know.
Perhaps we're just a really advanced auto-complete system that's just
Like
learned to
artificial
speak.
intelligence?
Yeah, we've just been set to communicate with each other, and we've just gone on these conversations.
Well, there was a bot like that in it was popular when we were in middle school.
Yeah.
It was like a website. They actually banned it from school but it was a conversation bot, and you'd type in things and it'd come back to you. It was really fun.
Nice.
It's enjoyable. I have no idea what it was called. It's completely gone out of my memory. I haven't even thought about that for 10 years or so.
10 years.
Yeah, it's been a long time. But did I actually think about it? We're just voices.
That's true. There was a website I remember going to in high school that it was like a mind reader website, and you'd put it in there and you'd ask your question to it, and it would come up and it would tell you the answer to it. But
So it's Google. You went to Google.
No, it was like 20 questions almost, but it only gave you, you only had one chance, And so you type it in, it's like, what's your name? Like something about you, like what's your middle name or what's your dog's name, and it would answer it, and it was really freaky for a while until I found out that you put in the question, and then when you go to type in whatever after, you have to type in the magic spell word or whatever, instead of typing exactly whatever you typed, you would just type in the answer, and it would show as if you were typing the magic words.
Okay.
And so it would just pop up with whatever you put, and it would be like, amazing! Whoa!
Now, I tell you what is amazing. I played a game of 20 questions a while back. We had a group that we did a skit on 20 questions about. But I had a word in my mind. I don't remember what it was. It was something like sloth or something random. The only thing I gave it was was it an animal? Yes. And then I just did random buttons, no matter what the question was that it asked, and it got it right at the end. Yeah, freaky stuff.
20 questions. Never trusted.
The only funny thing is when I actually try to do it correctly,
It never gets
it.
Yeah.
Should probably stop thinking of chinchillas.
Yeah, I don't think it's entirely familiar with chinchillas.
Probably not. I'm not either. Is it bigger than a bread box? Do people know what a bread box is nowadays?
What is the size of a bread box? What is a bread box?
Does it exist?
What does it do?
Schrodinger's bread box. Is there a cat in there? Is it alive or dead?
Does it fit?
If it fits, it sits. But is it bigger than a bread box?
But is it big? Or did he fit it into the bread box?
Whoa.
If it existed.
What if he's bigger than a bread box, but still fits in the bread box?
It's bigger on the inside?
Or the cat's smaller on the outside?
But that...
It's okay.
Well, as you may not have figured out the clue in all that rambling we've gone on, but today we're talking about inspirations and the beginning of thoughts, basically.
Yeah, and in an interview sort of way. So how we're going to go about it is we're going to follow the 20 questions format. So first off, Jameson, is it a person, place, object, thing, or animal? Or don't know?
It's a thing.
Oh, okay. Second question.
Mm-hmm.
Is it a book?
Mm.
You remember your answers are yes, no, sometimes maybe, don't know.
Maybe. What are we doing?
I don't know.
All right. So, we're gonna talk about the origins of our ideas, how we come up with certain things. Like for instance, Zach, what was the first initial thought that got you thinking about Castaways? Like, what gave you the idea of doing a Atlantis on another world? That
yeah, what did give me that idea?
What went through your head?
So I was thinking that Atlantis on another world would be really cool. No, I actually had a dream. Yeah, sort of funny story. We'll get into this a little bit later in this little interview section. Jameson had the same thing happen to spark his idea of Eternity Found. But in this dream, it was really interesting. I dreamt that I went to a different world through water. And like it was gorgeous. There were these islands, and I swam down to the bottom of the ocean, and there was a pirate ship down there, and I was like, hey, this is really cool, and I can breathe underwater. That's a new development. And I ran into a couple people in my dream that said that they were travelers, and they would travel between these different islands, and they had a specific way of doing so, and they all had certain powers. And they were able to... Some of them were able to traverse through the islands as if it was complete land in between them. And it was just really cool. And I woke up and I was like, hey, that's cool. I want to write about that. And so I did. I sat down and I wrote the prologue and wrote a bit of my ideas down.
Nice. That's cool. Yeah, like you said, I had a very similar scenario where I had a dream about space travel. I was in a ship it was a spherical ship, very round, very bland. It looked like an egg just flying through space.
It's the flying egg.
But it was able to morph its shell to look like other things, like to become a more aerodynamic thing
Egg.
for
A more aerodynamic egg.
and it would just adapt to situations. And I was on the ship, and I had some friends on there, and we were doing certain stuff. And it was, so the thing for me is, I lucid dream all the time.
So do I. That's why I was just like, I can breathe underwater now. That's a cool development.
It's like anytime I'm having a dream, I can just be like, oh, I'm having a dream. I'm actually in my bed sleeping right now, so I can just control and do what I want. You know, if I'm drowning, I'll just be like, well, I'm actually breathing because I'm laying in my bed, so I'll just start breathing. You know? It's like, you know what? I don't like this scenario. I'm just gonna fly.
Fun fact: if you want to learn how to lucid dream, really, whenever there's water in your dream, try to make a conscious decision to swim underneath it, because eventually your body is forced to breathe, and if you're still asleep at that time, there you are. You're lucid dreaming.
You heard it here first. Try to drown yourself in your dreams.
Only in your dreams.
Anybody who thinks they're dreaming but is not sure,
don't try to drown yourself.
Don't try to drown yourself.
Please don't.
This is an inception. You won't wake up.
Yeah.
But yeah, I've had a lot of other story ideas develop from dreams. There was one time I had a comet in my dream, but suddenly a comet hit the ground, and there was this big crater, and I walked into it and saw the little tiny meteorite, basically, and
you made a sword out of it?
No.
Oh.
But out of the meteorite came this insect that looked kind of like a mosquito, and it went and crawled into my arm. It was a really odd and creepy dream, and it freaked me out, but I remember passing out in my dream. You think of that, passing out in here.
I've been eaten by a dinosaur in my dreams. Chewed up, swallowed, everything.
Nice.
Yeah, it was fun. Don't try to get eaten by a dinosaur in real life.
I remember waking up in the dream to the sound of the heart monitor flatlining and people crying around me. And I just look around like, what's going on? And they're like, oh, you're alive! And it turned out that I had become a sentient zombie.
From a space bug.
Yeah, from a space bug. But I was lucky because other people had been bitten by it or taken over by it, but they didn't become smart. They were just zombies. But I had the ability to think and move and do my own things.
That's
and
cool.
Became like a weird zombie creature thing and went fighting zombies with swords and stuff. It was interesting.
Yeah, that's awesome. Well, it's a really cool way to start a story concept. Try to make sense of your dreams. Just write a short story about a dream you've had. Try to make sense of it. And you'll find that you can. This was your thought. So, who knows? Maybe you'll develop it into something like Castaways or like Eternity Found.
Mm-hmm.
Had a question for you. So we talked a bit about the origin of our stories.
Yes.
Crap, what was my question? That's my question.
We talked a bit about the origin of the stories. But...
I wanted to know the origin of the characters of your stories. Are there specific characters that are based off of real life people or things that you've taken from people you've seen that you've introduced into your characters?
Yes. I had begun writing Eternity Found. In fact, these characters were from a different story I had been trying to write, but they didn't really fit in the world that I was creating. And so I moved them into this world. But the bad thing was I was back in high school at the time when I created characters, and I based it on all my friends and all the people I knew. And then as time goes by, people change, and so do your relationships. And suddenly I felt like disconnected with the characters, and my writing suffered because I didn't want to write about these people.
Yeah.
And so eventually some of the main characters were all the people who were closest to me and me in there. But I eventually just decided to disconnect myself from it. And yeah, some of my personality's in there, but it's not me, and it's not my friends. even though their personalities can be in there as well. But it's new people that I've had the pleasure to be able to morph and create.
Yeah, I mean, that's one of the most fun things about a story. You start to feel like you know the characters. Like, in a personal basis. You're like, oh, hey, Leo, how you doing?
Uh-huh.
And you'll know Leo's going to respond not, hey, good, how are you? He'll respond this exact way with this exact mannerism. So do you find, so you said you have a little bit of your personality in there. One thing I've noticed, Leo has a love of puns.
Yes.
You have a love of puns.
I do have a love of puns. And there's a lot of humor in my writing that's a lot of pun-based things. And I try to tone it down, and that's probably why I get stuck to Leo. He's my outlet for it.
Yeah. Gotta just plug Leo into the pun outlet here. 8 gigawatts.
Nice.
That's awesome.
So, did you base Jim off of yourself then?
Oh, no.
Oh.
Jim and I are very much different, I feel.
Yeah.
I introduced something into the newest chapter that is very much based off of some of my thought processes with Jim. You'll find and hear that he is exceptionally bad at analogies. And I have weird analogies. And so I figured, I was writing and I was just like, I'm not going to waste my time trying to think of good analogies. I'm going to roll with my bad ones. And so Jim inherited that from me. But I feel Jim is a little less prone to emotional bouts than I am. He's a little more level-headed. And so, yeah, I like Leo has your puns. Jim has my propensity.
Yeah,
I think that's the word.
Yeah.
for bad analogies.
For bad analogies.
Or overthinking some really random little detail.
Don't bite a gift horse in the mouth.
Yes. Don't bite a gift horse in the mouth. Yes.
Don't kick a worm while it's down.
Yes.
Don't throw salt on the fire.
And obviously, don't put your laundry in the oven.
True. I can imagine somebody actually, I want to dry these, but my dryer's broken. If I just put it in the oven for a little bit.
Also, if you microwave your phone, it charges the battery.
Oh, yeah.
Don't microwave your phone.
Or you get weird demons.
Not to mention the other things that might happen to your phone. The wee demons will be released from your phone if you microwave them.
Look it up. Demon from phone and microwave.
Wait, what?
It's a video.
No.
It's hilarious and creepy and somebody takes their cell phone, puts it in the microwave, starts it, and it does the thing where the plastic and everything, the electronics in it melt the plastic but also expands it.
Yeah.
And so it just becomes a bulge, but it looks like a monster opening its mouth, and it's just like
That's genius.
It is.
Genius. So we've done a little bit about characters. I know I just asked a question, but I want to ask another one.
Oh, yeah, go ahead.
If you could be, best friends with any character in your book, who would it be? And why?
People that reading and listening to this, they're going to get to know one of the characters named Rick. Rick Mav is his full name. And he's the character I'm actually delving more on in general, because Leo is a set character. He's a main character. He's your stereotypical protagonist with different adversities than one protagonist might have. But Rick is a whole nother situation.
Yeah, he's very anti-hero.
He's very anti-hero. Yeah, he's just more unique in his personality and character all based on how he grew up, which is something you'll learn and discover throughout the course of the book. But I feel like, I personally feel like I could be a good friend with him. He'd be big and buff and brawny, and I'll feel really out of place next to him, but he'll connect with me on a humorous and intellectual level.
I can see that. I can see that. You'd have great chats over popcorn.
Yes. Uh-huh. Yeah.
Why popcorn?
I don't know.
Why is that the first thing that pops in my head?
Over apples.
That's better.
Uh-huh.
Yeah.
Why are there always apples?
I don't know. There's always apples everywhere.
Everywhere. No matter where you go, there's apples.
Yep. Space apples.
Space apples.
Undersea apples.
Mm-hmm.
Black hole apples.
Whale apples.
Yeah. And the inside of the whale, specifically.
Like growing straight from the side
It's
of the whale.
underneath the blowhole.
Yeah.
It's a tree that hangs from the roof of the whale's mouth. It's like a uvula.
Ooh. It's a second uvula. Only you can pick it and eat it.
Make sure you're picking the right uvula.
If you were eaten by a whale, could you find the pathway into its nose?
Yeah, probably. The hard part it would be the being eaten by a whale, due to their big long strings in their mouth that filter out all the big stuff.
That's true.
So if somehow you wiggled your way through their almost impenetrable barrier of mouth strings and you were in the mouth, you could probably find some cavity to climb up and
Of course,
go.
do whales even have noses?
That's also a good question.
I think about it, and I can imagine in my mind 2 little nostrils on the whale.
I think they do.
But I know that they have gills, so could you find your way out of the
They
gills?
don't have gills
They
because
don't
they're
have
mammals.
Oh, that's right. Whales are mammals.
Yeah, whales, think about that. You're under the water for hours holding your breath as a whale. And if you can't make it to the surface in time, you drown.
Man. it's like people with asthma. The one bad thing, people with asthma, the one thing you're bad at is breathing.
That's me. I'm bad at breathing.
One thing you had to be bad at. Poor whales.
So I had a thought while we were talking as well. As whale.
As whale.
We are writing about something. So you're writing about deep space.
Uh-huh.
I'm writing about deep ocean.
Uh-huh.
We're writing about each other's deepest phobias.
Okay, yes.
Like, I have had countless nightmares where I am just in space.
Just float.
By myself, spacesuit, nothing around me.
Infinite black.
No jetpacks, infinite black, just specks of stars every direction.
I've had nightmares of being underwater and giant creatures. Ugh.
Yeah, just talking about it. My buddy got me a game the other day. It's called Space Engineers.
Oh, yeah. Uh-huh.
It's terrifying. I can't play it. It's
Oh,
terrifying.
man. So, if we ever go to the mall, remind me to take you to the VR place.
Is there a deep space one?
There's a space simulator where you have to basically go out. You're robots on a ship trying to repair the ship if it's damaged. And you have to go outside the ship and hold on to the ship and, like, climb
Okay.
your way onto things and fix it.
I will do that if you agree to fight the Megalodon with me in Sea of Thieves. That's not even VR.
We've done it too, though.
We haven't fought it. Not yet.
Oh.
We watched the video and you were freaking out.
Okay.
Okay, we'll do it. Shake
Shake.
over. I mean, you guys can't see this, but we are literally shaking.
Phobia challenge.
I hate you.
I hate you too. So quick break. Just to let you guys know, update for the writing contest we're doing with North
writing
Logan.
contest.
So we've been discussing it, and we're actually going to delay the due date of the writing contest. We decided we wanted to get more people involved, not just for the fact that now not a lot of people have turned in so far. We want to give people time to write, and we know that people are probably frantically writing right now.
The biggest reason we are doing this is so we can give you guys more incentives.
Yes. So, we're going to have... Now, these are just promises right now, and we can't name things as of yet, but we have bigger prizes that will draw everyone.
Much bigger. Like, seriously, you want these prizes.
Like, you want to be a part of this contest, okay? For any high school student, you'll want this.
Yeah, guaranteed. And especially the up-and-coming creators.
Uh-huh.
You want this. I want this.
I want this. I wish I could just get it.
I'll go back to high school to get
And then, also, another incentive is guests.
Yeah, we have some professional authors that have agreed to come and be our judges.
Be our judges. So they'll be reading your stories and judging them. Not like harshly judging, but like you'll get criticism on your writing from professional authors who have been published. And
they'll be able to tell you what editors are looking for. They're going to be able to tell you what they love about your story, how you can improve your writing, what they love about your characters, everything.
And we can promise you at least one author that you probably know and love.
Yes, we can. Who is said author, Jameson? Do you wish to tease the listeners' ears?
We'll save that for an announcement. But
that's cruel.
Keep in mind that some of these authors won't just be judging, but they'll be making face-to-face appearances at an event.
You're so cruel.
Yes. Yes, I am. When we come to an official capacity that I'm allowed to announce names, I will.
I'm sorry, everybody. It's not like we're contractually bound, but morally bound.
Morally bound. But in that, keep in mind, it's going to be somewhere. We haven't set a firm due date, but that doesn't mean you don't stop writing, get things prepared by January.
Yep, we guarantee by January you'll know something.
Now, we're doing this not only just for us and getting preparation and more incentives, but for you guys as well.
Because who doesn't love prizes? And, prizes that are amazing.
And I can tell you by next week we'll be allowed to announce prizes.
Mm-hmm. Maybe not authors yet.
Not authors, but prizes.
And we do have authors.
We do.
We have confirmed authors.
Very much so.
And they are big name authors.
Yeah, none of your small time stuff.
Yeah, like that Jameson Smith guy.
Yeah, or that Zachary Brown band guy.
Yeah, he's not big name.
No.
So stay tuned. We want to give you more announcements. We want to give you more pows into what we're doing. I literally had no word in my head, so it came
Insight?
out pow. Insight.
Pows.
Anyways, back to our interview.
So, interview time once again.
Yeah. I've asked the past 4 questions,
I know.
so it's your turn.
So, when it comes to physically designing a character in your mind, do you ever have a set design? Or do you look for, inspirations? Or do you base it off of something you've seen?
Interesting. So with how they look physically.
Yes.
That's what you're asking.
Uh-huh.
I honestly, when I'm writing, I come up with a personality, and then it's really bad to say, but I get the stereotypes in my mind for that personality,
Uh-huh.
and I try to turn them on their head.
Nice.
So, yeah, I have when I imagine the characters, I have base features this is how tall they are, this is their color of hair, but I like to let the story dictate true physical characteristics. So How about yourself?
I actually was gonna say something very similar, where I'll have a base slate on the character, like, oh, here's your stereotypical white male, brown hair, or here's, the thing that best fits my beginning idea. But as I write, and the more things I get them to do, involving them in physical things, the more I can see their movements in my mind and how their body kind of forms in that way.
Mm-hmm.
And so I start to learn about how they look in my mind, but at the same time, it's always great to be able to see depictions of other people's interpretations.
Oh, I
of
love
it.
that. I love that so much.
I was able to get a good friend of ours who's a really, really good artist, and he's done a few pages in a comic format for me, and he's come up with designs of these characters that I've come to just adore.
Yeah, they're really good.
And
we might post some in the show notes.
Yeah, we can. I've always imagined Eternity Found being a comic book format, but in this, I'm kind of doing it more novel-esque. So eventually, I'll get a visual thing out there.
Yeah, it'd be awesome. It'd be real awesome. And what's really interesting is once you finally finalize. Wow,
Finalize.
I am. Wow. Once you get that clear picture of the character in your head, that's when they really just pop into existence. It's just like, how you doing? Hello again.
Mm-hmm.
Tell me, what are you doing next?
It's almost like you sit there and you ask the person. It's like, in this scenario, what would you do? What would you say? And they're like, well, basically, I'd just do this and that, and I'd do this to that person, and I'd say this little quip, and
and it's really fun when you get into the scenarios when you know multiple characters, and you've got that scene going with 3-4 characters at the same time, and it's just, okay, this is what I do. But he's saying that. Never mind, I'm doing that.
Or there's those moments where it's like, oh man, this character I've been writing for so long is meeting this character. Oh man, what's gonna happen here? It's kind of like watching your own story, your own cartoon or show. It's like, how are they gonna interact?
Yep. So, here's a question for you.
Mm-hmm.
So now that you know your characters, have you ever had one throw a complete curveball at you?
Yes. So I've been learning a lot of equality in my writing, and as a male author, I tend to think in male terms more often than female. And so when I initially create a side character, my first thought is guy. I say him, them, that person, that guy, and I've slowly been able to get myself used to thinking outside of my own gender. And being like, oh, that person, that woman, it's
Flip a coin.
Flip a coin. There you go.
It's a 50% chance.
And so as I've introduced characters I've created in the past, I've suddenly realized, wow, their role in the story fits. Not because of any stereotype or anything, but their characterization fits better as this instead of what I originally thought.
Mm-hmm.
And so there have been characters that have just thrown me through a loop because I'm like, all right, I really don't feel like they would do this. But if their motivations were completely different because of this change, then the character really comes to form.
Yeah, it's when they finally cement and it's like, boing, hello.
Yeah. In fact, this is something that Brandon Sanderson himself has struggled on. He laments about the first Mistborn book that he thought, by writing a female protagonist, that he would be defying the gender stereotypes.
Mm-hmm.
But in the fact that all of the side characters were male,
every one of them,
he was only strengthening the stereotypes. And so in his further writings, he's been like, I feel bad about what I did, so here's everything that's fixing it.
Yep.
You improve as a writer the more you do it.
You do. To quote George Lucas, art is a work in progress. I know George Lucas isn't the best one to quote there, but still.
Work in progress, huh? Is that everything you've made there, Lucas?
Yep.
It kind of seems like it.
Yep.
If you don't see everything as a work in progress, maybe if you leave your finalized things alone and not see it as a work in progress, we wouldn't have the digital versions of the original trilogy.
Oh my.
Of course, I am welcome to the change in Palpatine's design from the first to the second.
Yes. Yes. Very much so.
The weird bug eye guy.
He's hideous.
He's
Darth Hideous.
Darth Hideous. Well, one more question. So, in your writings, talking about character design and archetypes and personalities, do you ever think of a character initially with a impediment of some kind, a disability or any kind of downgrade to their character?
Initially, I have a bad habit of thinking of characters perfect when I start them out. But I always try to build my characters with a built-in weakness. For instance, one character that quickly pops to mind is Paul Stein. When I first built him, super stalwart castaway, which he still is, but I built in a major insecurity in him with like, oh no, I can't leave. I can't do that. I can't go face that thing. No. So I gave him a crippling fear. There have been other characters where I've toyed around with the idea of making them schizophrenic or things like that. But sadly, it is not something that I think of right off the bat.
Yeah.
How about yourself?
Well, I'm sitting here thinking the thing that brought the question to my mind is we're both sitting here with glasses on, and we don't have perfect vision, but yet we think of characters who are better. You know?
Yeah.
And I initially thought of Leo as, with a perfect, form of a person, but then eventually I've sized him down. He's a lot smaller than an average, protagonist, and he has a lot of character deficiencies, whereas he doesn't like being involved. He doesn't like getting himself involved in affairs that don't involve just him.
Yeah, Jim's a very faithful person. No affairs. Not Jim. Leo. Leo's a very faithful person. No affairs.
He's one of that lays back and lets things to do come to him, basically. Like, oh, hey, I heard about this heist that can happen. I guess I can go do that. But if somebody comes and says, hey, you need to go do this, you got to save this people, he's just like,
but why?
But should I? It's like, I don't know if I should or if I want to, and then he's got Pal there to be like, hey, come on. This is not what you used to be like. Come on, go and do this thing.
That's interesting that you said you made Leo shorter and less ideal. Yeah. I slimmed Jim down so he's positively lanky and exceptionally clumsy. So
it's funny. The more I size down my main characters, the more I beef up my villains.
Yep.
It's just like they're the more perfect individuals, whereas my main characters are the flawed ones.
And I love doing that. Love doing that. Making the villains more perfect is always enjoyable. But I'm a big pew of
believer.
Believer.
Pew pew pew.
I'm a big believer in giving every single character a flaw. Every single character needs a weakness.
Not everything's a Superman complex,
Nope, not everything. So I can't stand to fly. I'm not that naive.
I'm not just a face on the side of a train.
Yeah. It's not easy to be me with all
It's
my
not easy
godlike
being
powers.
mean.
Anyways,
A rock! Oh no!
I hope you guys have enjoyed this interview between us. We're gonna have a lot more things like this in the future. We'll throw some story elements here and there in. We're always open to your questions. We love having them. But we really want to help foster a creative community.
Yes, which means we're looking to expand our diagram in this, basically, our panorama.
Our horizons.
Our horizons, ooh. We're in talks with a few people to do some visual context to the podcasts, maybe do some YouTube videos, but also to expand the stories that are told on the podcast. And we're looking into ways that'll do it without hampering our schedules and including people that, it won't harm their lives at the same time. So look for us to be expanding, especially with the contest and the people getting involved with us.
Now, what this also means for you is we can still guarantee that there will be a podcast every week with a story attached to it. One of our stories attached to it.
Mm-hmm.
Whether that means there is maybe a radio play before the story, who knows? So,
yeah. Just wait and see what we've got in store for you guys. We'll hopefully be getting a lot more available in the coming future and building up to the competition release where we'll have a lot more for you to see of us there.
Because we will be there.
We will be there.
If you want to know if we are real or not, be there.
If we're not just advanced AI set to talk to each other.
Well, who knows? We could have like very realistic looking skin.
Oh yeah.
And just be complete machine on the inside.
We're just synthezoids.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly.
Get it? Synthezoids? Because we're radio podcast.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay.
Uh-huh. Today's story, we're going to have Eternity Found Chapter 2, Part 1. Just because of time restraints, you'll understand. Pal spun the disc in his hand and raised his other hand to project an image of a galaxy they recently entered. This is a compact disc, rather primitive, actually almost an antique. It has a set of coordinates and an invitation written on it. Why would someone physically mail me a disc? Didn't they know that they would just attract attention? Leo paced back and forth, looking at a newly purchased item brought aboard the ship while he was away retrieving the disc. Perhaps that was the point. It goes on talking about a meeting, Pal stated, studying the coordinates and sifting through the galactic map that surrounded him, filling a three-dimensional space and glowing brightly with a plethora of systems and stars. Each star was colored to designate a different constellation grouping. Launch gates installed within each system highlighted was what connected the constellations for both faster-than-light travel and to clearly mark the quartz boundaries. Leo lifted a bright red fruit out of one of the large crates. Apples? Why is it that everywhere we go, there's always an apple? No noteworthy deaths of any significant collectors of antiquities in recent galactic news. Palverian spoke aloud. Did you miss a tabloid or something? Leo questioned as he looked towards Palverian, who now had a third arm, which was stroking a keyboard made of light floating in the air. Some wealthy men of the higher classes within the High Court hold an auction for their possessions upon death. I thought that maybe we knew someone who didn't have family to pass their fortune on to, Pal remarked. No. Something like an auction is just charity for other wealthy collectors. No one but the rich and privileged would know anything. Leo took a bite of an apple and stepped through the galactic projection to take away the floating console from Palverian's extra simulated hand. Pal retracted the appendage and returned to his search for the old-style coordinates. Your point being, why would they ask a thief to be a part of an auction? That's like handing a load of credits in a fancy-wrapped box for the first person to grab it. And you know who would have off with it in the end, Leo explained. Perhaps it's a call for thieves, then? A job offer? Palverian attempted to find the correct clarification. What kind of man who throws out an antique with his family crest shown prominently on the front wants to hire a thief? Leo asked as he held up the disc to show Palverian. The symbol showed a large bird encompassing a planet as if it was a flame consuming the world. That same symbol stood on top of a large stoic storage facility on a privately owned moon called Zaxar, becoming their new destination. Leo was a bit relieved at their new location. He had been used to traveling from small asteroid to large city-filled planets. Going to a celestial body, similar in size to the one he was raised, always made him feel comfort. Palverian would feel the opposite effect with a place like this, due to his struggles to escape the place Leo and he were raised. The apropos glided down through Zaxar's atmosphere with light resistance, and soared over the large fields of crops that made up most of the surface. The area around the facility itself was dirt, giving it the feel of being a simple farm facility. Palverian guided the ship down to the dirt of the small moon, the apropos sensing the ground and stretching out feet to land softly. Palverian patted the console as if giving it praise for a job well done. Should I leave you two alone? Leo asked as he put on his disguise. You may not feel the same way, but I like to think I have a close relationship with this ship, Palverian stated as he smiled towards the screen, as if it had a face to emote in return. That's putting it lightly, Leo chuckled as he secured his cufflinks and walked closer to the image of his friend. I forget sometimes, though, Palverian started before trailing off and looking down at his hands with a somberly heavy stare. Leo noticed the change in tone and reached out to Palverian's shoulder with a comforting grip. I promise you, pal, one day you'll feel like this holographic life was all a dream, like it never happened. One way or another, I'm sure, Palverian finished as he looked over his shoulder with an attempted smile. Leo felt a bit awkward in that moment, being unsure what to say or what was the right thing to even feel towards the unfortunate image of a man before him. I'll, be back soon. Leo walked back to the center of the ship and was lowered out onto the moon. Palverian leaned back in his chair and breathed a heavy sigh before sitting up and started to do more research to put his mind on other things. Leo paced himself in an attempt to seem more militaristic, to fit the disguise he wore. The dirt of the moon that he kicked up with each step quickly attached itself to the white of his pants. He had to brush off his jacket every other moment, being careful not to knock off the badges and bars that made him out to be a decorated captain. The only patch that was missing was that of the Avalon Industries logo, that once adorned the coat beneath the nameplate, which now holds a name other than his own. He walked up and knocked on the front door of the facility. Immediately the door sunk into the floor to reveal a robot built to look like a humanoid with a skeletal frame surrounding minor machinery that helped it live, standing on the other side. Leo found himself caught off guard at the sight of the familiar thing before him, drawing out his voice to say, "Oh." The Talanx looked Leo up and down with a fine beam that scanned his body. Leo raised his hands to make the scan easier for the thing, and to show he wasn't carrying any weapons, so as not to provoke any self-defense protocols. The Talanxian robot ushered to Leo to follow it through multiple hallways that filled with files and boxes until they entered into a nicer room that was dressed down with neatly presented furniture. "Welcome, my friend," a small furry creature announced as it walked around a chair and used its gray fluff-fingered hands to climb into a seated position. "Please, state your name." Leo found himself blinking to figure out if he was seeing things correctly, but with each glance he took, he could only become more familiar with the fanged face. He felt as if he'd seen the species before, but just couldn't put his finger on the correct specification because of its off-putting feral look. The correlation of colors between its clothing and its fur would make him think it wasn't wearing anything, but the tapping of its shoed feet would remind anyone of the oddly off sight. "You should know. You put it on the package," Leo stated as he continued staring towards the unfamiliar species that sat looking like a cross between a stuffed toy and a gremlin oddly presented in nice clothing. "I'm sorry. Do you mind me asking where you're from?" "Of course. My name is Tunil. My planet of origin is Shim, newly introduced to the court of the constellations," it replied with a gracious tone. Its long ears pointed straight outward to the sides, emoting its intrigue. "Shim? I've heard of it, from the Outer Ring. I hear its people are very closed off, like to keep to themselves," Leo discussed. "Yes, they're very guarded. But there are a few of us who leapt at the opportunity of knowing more about the universe which we live in," Tunil replied. "Now that we're familiar, I'd like to discuss an opportunity for you."
Hey, guess what?
What?
We had someone write in.
Woohoo!
Hey, guess what else?
What?
It's not Erling.
Whoa!
I know, isn't that weird?
We have a question. So it's actually a statement with other things in. This is a I know him as Mr. Belk or Brother Belk. He's in my home ward. But he has texted me in, and I thought I'd give him a shout out on the podcast. So basically, I'll start reading it off.
Just an idea on races as a taxidermist. I work with a lot of cervidae. I don't know how to say that word. It's probably right. Deer, elk, moose, etc. once a year. They go into what most people refer to as the rut. They gain all sorts of muscle right before the rut. Testosterone levels spike, and tempers flare, leading to fighting for weeks, oftentimes fighting to the death. The winner in elk societies is called the monarch, and then gets to breed with his harem of cows until a bigger, badder bull dethrones him. That's end of sentence. Dethrones him. Period. I have often wondered what if our human race had taken the same evolutionary path as elk or some intelligent alien species, had a similar biology most of the year. Wow, I can read. They had a similar biology. Most of the year they would be a nice, docile, and peaceful people, but when the amount of daily sunlight changes, their bodies and the chemicals in their bodies change too. These people would have yearly seasons of war followed by peace. Anyhow, just an idea of races. Keep up the good work.
I really like that thought. Yeah, it kind of brought me back to the race that we created that, they communicate by emotion. The mood ring people.
Yeah, the mood ring race.
The mood ring.
Hey, you need to go into your angry box.
Go into your angry box. But having another race that just throughout a certain time period on their planet, when it gets into a certain form around the sun, they just go ballistic and have wars, and they
go complete barbarian rages.
And it's just devastating to either side. And then after that year's done, it's just a time of peace and love, like the exact opposite to the two most extreme kind of a thing.
Yeah, I mean, you got World War II for 1 year, and then Woodstock for the rest.
Free love, man. We gotta repopulate after
Oh, yeah,
all
they're-
that killing.
They're hippie elk.
Moo, man.
Yeah, dog.
Yeah.
Oh, man, yeah.
Mm.
I'm feeling it. I'm gonna kill you.
Yeah.
That'd be. I really like that. I think it might be an interesting thing if their racial ally were the mood ring people.
That would be cool.
So, what if they were in a tidally locked system with two planets that constantly faced each other? One of them were the mood ring people. One of them were these elk-like people, and so they would go around their sun in a pattern completely facing each other the whole time.
Mm.
And so you have that dichotomy of moods.
You have the race that communicates entirely by emotion and has complete control and has developed ways of controlling. And then you have the other race that lives by the emotion.
Could you imagine just once every, how long this cycle is, they start invading the other planet?
Yeah, they've become spacebound and they're traveling to other systems and they can get access to other places and they're just like super kind and they're the most neat people in the universe until somehow that planet meets the quota that changes them into their warlike.
So what would happen is this species would have to have some sort of connection biologically to their planet itself. In order for that trigger to happen for every member of that species at the same time. Because if they are off planet and they didn't have that connection, how would they go into that rage?
Wouldn't it just be a similar season, since their bodies have adjusted to, the time frames set on their planet, and then they basically, if for elk it became fall and then they went into that.
Mm-hmm.
What if on another planet had all the signs of it doing the same thing and their bodies just reacted the same way?
That would be fun. So say it's like winter. Snows everywhere. Automatically trigger one of these people. So there's a planet completely encased in snow, and there's this small colony of these aliens that refuse to get off because they're just rage beasts all the time.
They each have a certain trigger.
Mm-hmm.
Oh man.
But really, really awesome idea.
Yeah.
Something that I never would have thought about. I don't think you would have.
No.
But just really, really fun. That's why we want the community to write in, because we get awesome ideas like this, and who knows, your idea might be incorporated into our universes.
Very much so. And it's a great way that we can communicate to you, and you can communicate to us.
Yeah, you could communicate to us if you want to.
And we can work together in a way. So, I love this.
I have an idea. You have an idea. Better ideas.
I have an idea. I have a pen. A written idea.
Oh.
I have another idea. I have a pen. An even better written idea.
Written idea. Even better written idea. Editing. Throw it out the window.
Yeah.
Well, on that depressing note, thank you for joining us.
You guys have an amazing, fantastic day. And remember,
when life gets you down,
just do a sound hug.
Your ears smell funny.
How's my breath?
Ears don't smell.
Oh.
But they can smell funny.
Huh.
Isn't